Today I'm going to be showing you how to rebuild a Traxxas Ultra Shock using the Traxxas Shock Rebuild Kit. As you can tell, my rear left shock is leaking oil. I can tell because it has a really just a grimy look to it, almost like oil. Now if you look at my other shocks, they're dry. They're dirty, but they're dry. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this shock by undoing the top screw as well as the lower one. Now that the shock is off, you can really see it's leaking oil pretty badly. So I'm going to start off by removing the spring. Lift it up at the base, pull the brace off, slide it to the side, and the spring should follow. Now at this time, it'd be a really good idea to just go ahead and wipe off all the extra oil. To get the shock cap off, I always use a small screwdriver, stick it through, and then rotate it. Works every time. Works really well when you're tightening it too. Unscrew the shock cap all the way. And yeah, you can see that the oil level is really low. So right off the bat I can tell you the reason why it's leaking is the bladder isn't sitting in there right. You can see it's almost kinked at a certain angle. That is why it's leaking. So when I put in the aluminum shocks, I guess I didn't install the bladder right. No problem, I'll go and fix it and I'll still show you how to replace the seals in the lower part of the shock. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and empty out all this oil. Now that I drained all the oil from the shock, I need to take off the rod end. So I use a pair of pliers with some foam on there. You really do not want to scratch up the piston for the shock, otherwise it will cause leaks in the end. But hold it in place and just go ahead and unscrew it. Like I said, it's really important that you do not scratch up this shaft. Once the rod end comes off, go ahead and push it all the way out to the other end and pull this out gently. Now we can work on the bottom of the shock. The bottom of the Ultra Shock easily just screws off. So yeah, turn it counterclockwise and there you go. There are 3 seals in here. There is a light rubber one, a plastic one, and then another rubber one. Sometimes these little rubber seals get damaged, and you can see that it is actually a bit damaged on the inside. It should be smooth, so I am going to have to replace these. Now in the kit, you will see they have included those little blue seals. So go ahead and get 2 of those out. And you can see that the new seal has a very smooth surface to it. No scratches, no damage. So you're going to go ahead, wipe out the end of this real quick, just to get any grime out. Put in one of those blue seals, and then that black, or in the kit it will give you a white one, but you can use the black one again. Since this is made out of a hard plastic, the chances of that getting damaged are pretty low. And then one more light blue. And screw on. Actually, be sure to go ahead and wipe that off too. Now you can screw on the bottom of the shock. You're going to want to make sure that that cap is on there as tight as you can get it. Next, you can move on to this. Now for the rear Ultra Shocks, they'll always have that extra little washer on here. For the front ones, they do not have it. So don't be too freaked out if you find that this is not on the front one. Also, if you want to change your piston head, you just have to take off that little E-clip and then switch out the piston. Now this pretty much controls how much fluid goes through the shock when it collapses. But that's all for performance. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you find the hole, and you're not going to want to jab it through because the thread at the end of the rod will tear up those seals at the bottom. So you're going to want to go ahead and do this rather slowly. Sometimes you can push it through fairly easily, other times you just got to rotate it and make sure it makes it all the way through. But like I said, do not jam it through. Once the thread is passed, then you can pull it. Then you're going to want to get your wrench, hold shaft still and screw on the rod end. Once the rod end is back on, you're going to move on to the shock cap. Now to get the old bladder out, just use a small little screwdriver or something and it'll come out really easily. Go and get the new one. You're going to install it into the top of the shock cap. Push it down and make sure that it lies flat on each side. That's what I didn't do last time. You never want to rest it on top of the shock and then screw it on, because the chances of it not going in right are pretty high. Now that that's installed, get your shock. You're going to need some silicone oil. How much do you fill it up? All the way to the top. So fill it up about halfway. Push the piston up a little bit. Work the oil. Make sure there's no air bubbles left or stuck on the bottom. And fill it all the way up to the top. Quite literally to the top. Don't worry if it overflows. The less air in there, the better. Then you just screw on the cap. Tighten it as much as you can by hand. Get a small screwdriver. Make sure you get it just a little bit more. You don't want to strip it. If any oil comes out, don't worry about it. Next, you're going to want to get this piece, slide it back on, followed by the shock spring. Get the lower brace, push that on, make sure that the spring sets on the braces correctly, and you are pretty much ready to go. Now you can install this back on your RC. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, I'm done.